Imagine a man whose very name became a synonym for genius. A man who reshaped our understanding of the universe itself, time, space, matter, and energy. Yet behind the legend was once a little boy, labeled slow, a child who barely spoke until the age of 4, a student dismissed as lazy, a dreamer lost in his thoughts. This is not just the story of equations and theories. This is the human story of Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was more than a scientist. He was a rebel, a thinker, and a seeker of truth. Born in the late 19th century, he lived through 2 world wars, revolutions in science, and the moral dilemmas of modern technology. He gave us the theory of relativity. He gave us a new language of the cosmos. He became an icon of intelligence. But who was Einstein the man? Where did his genius come from? And what trials shaped him into the mind that would change history? Let us journey back to the small German town of Ulm in the year 1879. Albert Einstein was born on March 14th, 1879. His parents, Hermann and Pauline, were middle-class Jews. Hermann ran a small electrical business. Pauline loved music, especially the piano. Albert, however, was not the kind of child anyone expected to become famous. He barely spoke. His family even worried he might never learn properly. But when he did speak, his questions startled adults. Why is the sky blue? Why does a compass needle always point north? Why does light travel so fast? Questions burned in his young mind like fire. Einstein's childhood was not always easy. He was shy, withdrawn, often lost in thought. He hated rigid schooling. His teachers thought him stubborn, even foolish. One teacher once said, "Albert, you will never amount to anything." But while he struggled with rote memorization, Albert found magic in books, especially in math and physics. At age 5, something changed his life. His father showed him a simple compass. Albert was mesmerized. The needle moved as if guided by invisible hands. How, he wondered. What hidden force rules the world? That tiny compass ignited a lifetime of curiosity. In school, young Einstein clashed with the system. German classrooms demanded obedience, discipline, memorization. Albert wanted freedom, thought, imagination. He preferred daydreams of riding on beams of light. He pictured himself chasing photons, racing through space. These dreams, wild as they seemed, would later grow into revolutionary theories. At 15, his family moved to Italy. Albert stayed behind to finish school, but he was miserable. Finally, he dropped out without a diploma, a school failure, at least on paper. Despite setbacks, Albert had a burning love for science. He read the works of great physicists in his spare time. He studied mathematics far beyond his years. Eventually, he entered the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich. There, his rebellious spirit met freedom. He found like-minded thinkers. He fell in love with Mileva Maric, a fellow physics student. But even here, his independent ways clashed with authority. He skipped classes. He studied on his own. Professors saw him as a lazy outsider. Yet Albert kept thinking, kept imagining, kept chasing light. By the time Einstein graduated, he was far from a rising star. No university wanted him as a professor. He couldn't even find a teaching job. So the man who would change the universe took a job at a patent office. It was here, in obscurity, that Einstein's genius would finally erupt. Bern, Switzerland. The year is 1902. Albert Einstein, now in his early 20s, worked at the Swiss patent office. His job, reviewing inventions. Day after day, he stamped documents, checked technical details, and filed away papers. It was monotonous, it was routine. But inside his mind, a revolution was brewing. While his colleagues read applications, Einstein scribbled equations in the margins. When others discussed trivial matters, Einstein drifted away into worlds of thought experiments. This obscure patent clerk was preparing to rewrite the laws of physics. Historians call it the annus mirabilis, the miracle year. In 1905, Einstein published 4 groundbreaking papers. One explained the photoelectric effect, how light itself could knock electrons free from metal. Another provided mathematical proof that atoms existed. A third introduced special relativity, revealing that time and space were not absolute. And the fourth, it gave us the most famous equation in history, E equals mc squared energy equals mass, multiplied by the speed of light squared. 4 papers, 1 year, from a patent office desk. The world of physics would never be the same. But genius does not always bring applause. Einstein's ideas clashed with established science. Many professors dismissed his work as fantasy. How could a patent clerk challenge Newton? They asked. Yet slowly, the world began to listen. The photoelectric effect earned him recognition. Years later, it would win him the Nobel Prize in physics. Relativity, too, began to spread, though it was so radical that even other scientists struggled to grasp it. Time is not fixed. Space can bend. Mass and energy are one. It sounded impossible. But Einstein had evidence. During this time, Einstein's personal life was stormy. He married Mileva Maric, his fellow physics student. They had children. But his devotion to science strained their marriage. Letters revealed tension. Mileva felt neglected. Einstein was absorbed in equations, papers, and thought experiments. Eventually, their relationship collapsed. They divorced. It was a painful chapter for both. Yet even through heartbreak, Einstein's mind never stopped. By the 1910s, Einstein was no longer an unknown clerk. He was invited to academic posts, universities, and conferences. His reputation grew. In 1915, he completed his general theory of relativity, a deeper revolution than his earlier work. He declared that gravity was not a mysterious force, but the curvature of space-time itself. Massive objects bend the very fabric of reality, like a heavy ball warping a rubber sheet. This was bold, beautiful, revolutionary. But once again, critics doubted. How could anyone prove it? The answer came in 1919, a solar eclipse, a chance to test Einstein's bold theory. The world held its breath, and Albert Einstein, once dismissed as a dreamer, was about to become the face of modern science. May 29, 1919. A total solar eclipse darkened the skies over parts of Africa and South America. Why did this eclipse matter? Because it was the chance to test Einstein's general theory of relativity. His prediction was bold. Light from distant stars should bend as it passed near the sun's massive gravity, an invisible curve in space itself. British astronomer Sir Arthur Eddington led the expedition. Despite clouds, storms, and wartime hardship, his team managed to capture photographs. When they developed the plates, the results were astonishing. The starlight had bent, exactly as Einstein predicted. Overnight, newspapers declared, "Newton overthrown. Revolution in science. A new genius of the universe. Einstein." The once obscure patent clerk became a global celebrity. By the 1920s, Albert Einstein was no longer just a physicist. He was a cultural icon. His wild hair, thoughtful eyes, and eccentric charm made him instantly recognizable. Journalists crowded his lectures. His name appeared in headlines across continents. Ordinary people, who had no idea what relativity meant, still admired the man who dared to challenge the universe. But fame came with a burden. Einstein was not only a scientist, he became a symbol of modern thought, a voice of reason in a world shaken by war. Einstein's rise to fame came just after World War I. Europe was scarred by violence, nationalism, and hatred. As a pacifist, Einstein spoke openly against war. He urged nations to seek peace. He supported international cooperation, but his Jewish heritage made him a target. In Germany, anti-Semitism grew stronger. Extremists branded him a traitor. Some even plotted against his life. Einstein's scientific work was called Jewish physics by his enemies, but he refused to remain silent. Beyond science, Einstein believed in justice and humanity. He supported the Zionist movement, advocating for a cultural homeland for Jews in Palestine. Yet he also preached coexistence and peace with Arabs. He donated money to schools, promoted education, and defended the rights of minorities. But the growing shadow of hatred in Germany troubled him deeply. Amid fame and turmoil, Einstein found love once more. He married Elsa Einstein, his cousin, who cared for him with devotion. Their life was more stable than his first marriage. Yet Einstein remained married to his work above all else. He traveled the world, giving lectures in America, Japan, and beyond. Everywhere he went, crowds greeted him like a rock star of science. But inside, Einstein was weary. He disliked the constant attention. He longed for quiet thinking, not flashing cameras. By the late 1920s and early 1930s, storm clouds gathered again. In Germany, a new political movement rose, the Nazis. Their propaganda targeted Jews, intellectuals, and freethinkers. Einstein, with his fame and outspoken views, became a prime target. Newspapers attacked him. His house was raided. His name appeared on hit lists. Once again, Einstein faced a choice: stay in his homeland or leave. Einstein chose exile. In 1933, he sailed to the United States. There at Princeton, he would spend the rest of his life. But the world he entered was heading toward yet another war. And this time, Einstein's name would become linked not only to peace and discovery, but also to the most destructive weapon ever created. 1933. Einstein stepped onto American soil, leaving behind the turmoil of Nazi Germany. He accepted a position at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. There, in a quiet office with chalkboards and books, Einstein found a safe haven. But though he was free, his homeland was falling into darkness. Friends, colleagues, and millions of Jews faced persecution. Einstein, once a German citizen, now declared himself a citizen of the world. As the 1930s drew to a close, the Nazis grew stronger. Hitler's armies marched across Europe. The possibility of a Second World War became reality. Einstein, a lifelong pacifist, hated the thought of violence. Yet he also feared what the Nazis could do with modern science. Rumors spread German scientists might be building a superweapon, an atomic bomb. In 1939, physicist Leo Szilard approached Einstein. Together, they drafted a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The warning was clear: if Hitler developed a nuclear weapon first, the world would face catastrophe. Einstein signed it. That letter led to the creation of the Manhattan Project. The path toward the atomic bomb had begun. But when the bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, Einstein was devastated. He had never worked on the Manhattan Project directly, but his signature had opened the door. He told friends, "Had I known, I would never have signed that letter." The man who unlocked the secrets of energy now carried the burden of destruction. From then on, Einstein spoke passionately against nuclear weapons. He called for disarmament, for peace, for global unity. In Princeton, Einstein continued to work, not on weapons but on deep questions of the cosmos. He sought a unified field theory, a single equation that could explain all forces of nature. He never found it, but he never stopped searching. Einstein also became a public voice for justice. He opposed racism in America. He supported civil rights leaders, including Paul Robeson and W.E.B. Du Bois. He even welcomed Marian Anderson, the black opera singer, to stay at his home when hotels turned her away. Einstein's science gave him fame, but his humanity gave him greatness. By the 1950s, Einstein was a legend. His wild white hair and gentle smile became symbols of wisdom itself. Students visited him in Princeton, hoping to hear words of inspiration. Reporters still knocked on his door, but Einstein remained humble. To him, he was still that boy chasing light. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away at the age of 76. His final words, spoken in German, were lost to history, but his legacy was eternal. Albert Einstein gave us more than equations. He gave us a new way to see reality: time and space, energy and matter, war and peace, science and humanity. He once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, imagination encircles the world," and indeed his imagination reshaped our world forever. Einstein's story is not just about science, it is about courage, curiosity, and conscience. So the next time you look at the night sky, remember the man who dared to ask, "What if I could ride on a beam of light?" And remember, like Einstein, you too have the power to question, to imagine, and to change the world.